Welcome to this short presentation looking at getting back on track with 1+2 languages. My name is Thea Palu. I'm the 1+2 languages DO for Highland. And I'd just like to take about 15 minutes to outline the support on offer in Highland as we come to the end of the implementation period for 1+2, and funding will be significantly reduced next session. So I will start with a gentle just reminder of the expectations. So in primary, the L2 should start in P1 and continue through to the end of P7. And the L3 should start in P5, and there should be an experience in P6 and 7 as well. In secondary, the L2 should continue ideally from primary and to the end of S3. And at some point in BGE, S1, 2 or 3, there will be an L3 experience. And in senior phase, there will be opportunities for the L2 and or the L3 to be progressed at national qualifications, awards or short courses in one or more languages. On slides where it's appropriate, I've put links at the bottom here for further reading, and these are hyperlinked so you can get more information should you require it. So in primary school, the expectation for the L2 is that it would be delivered by the class teacher all the way from P1 to P7. It would be progressive and build on the language, rather than just repeating what's been covered each year. And it would start in lower primary with mainly daily routines, such as greeting learners, taking the register, and moving out beyond just the French and looking at the whole curriculum. So P warm-ups or cross-curricular work, for instance. As the children move up into middle and upper primary, we'd be looking more at discrete lessons, and they would be a longer, regular weekly inputs rather than just a little bit every day. And that's to give the learners a chance to really develop the skills and go more into depth with particular topics. So in Highland, for L2, the core resources that we have are for French and Gaelic. These are the main L2s, and all the resources are in the Highland Languages SharePoint site. So for Gaelic, we have Highland modules, which you do need a Glow username and password to access through the SharePoint site. And they are supplemented by the resources in the Go Gaelic website, which is freely accessible online. And you can see there's also a link here to the overview of the topics that are covered. For French, we have Power Language Schools, and up until now, Highland has subscribed to it, and you've needed an individual login and username to access the PLS website. But from now on, all the materials can be accessed through a Highland SharePoint site. And that's the P1 to 7 planners for French as L2. And we actually also have them for German and Spanish as L2 as well. And they are supplemented by resources from Highland as well. And you can see an overview of the topics that are covered here. For secondary, the key points for L2 are that the L2 is an entitlement to the end of S3, and ideally it would be continued from primary. However, there are instances where this might not happen, and it might be that S1 learners, when they start in secondary, might choose to continue their L3 from primary, and that will become their L2. So they would literally be swapping it. So that should really only be happening if the schools, the primary schools, have had the opportunity to give learners the chance to achieve second level in P7 in the L3, so that then they can progress that further. In terms of the L3, the language is chosen by the individual school, whether that be a primary or a secondary school. There's no need for the language to progress from primary to secondary, therefore it doesn't need to be an ASG decision. There are a variety of languages that schools are taking in Highland, and you can see these indicated here. But it really is up to the school to decide what language best suits their individual settings and staffing. In terms of the level, it must be progressive. So that means the language must go beyond individual words. The children should be able to give some simple phrases and sentences. They should be able to use their skills that they've learned in L1 and L2 and develop these further, such as decoding a short text, using a dictionary, or manipulating language. They should also have the opportunity to develop skills across talking, listening, reading, and basic writing. There are a variety of ways that it can be organised, and it may be that it's the same language covered in every year in primary, or different languages. It could also be done as a block, concentrated period of time, but it does need to be an extended period of time, like a term. Or it could be that it's just a weekly, once a week lesson over a whole year, or 3 years, for instance. It could be taught by the class teacher, or a specialist within the school or out with the school. And an interesting approach for L3 that's becoming more popular is the Idl Approach, or cross-curricular approach, and that would be over a number of weeks, or, for instance, a term. Again, it needs to go beyond individual word level and not just be a cultural input. A lot of schools are tying it in with cross-curricular work that they do, for instance, around Burns or St Andrew's Day in primary, and focusing on Gaelic or Scots language, or looking at Chinese New Year if they were looking at Mandarin as an L3. In secondary, it's often timetables are compulsory elective, or a masterclass or short course, or even an award such as Modern Languages for Life and Work Award. It shouldn't take away time from the L2. It should be separate to the L2. And it can also be an IDL as well. And it doesn't have to be done within the languages department. It could be in another department. For instance, in some schools, the English department covers Scots literature and looks at Scots language. These documents are just some self-evaluation tools for you to look at, and if you click the image, it will take you to the document. It's just really to give you a chance to have a wee think about different areas such as leadership, curriculum, CLPL and parental engagement, and where you are in your journey to full implementation by August of this year. And you can see that I've just traffic lighted it, so I could show you what you would be expecting to sort of be doing or covering in your school for each area. The documents are the same really, apart from the curriculum, because obviously that's different in both, so I've put the appropriate expectations. For secondary, there's also a very useful FAQs document here, gathered from national roadshows a couple of years ago, which answers a lot of people's questions. I'd just like to outline the online support that we have in Highland for 1+2. So we've got 3 different websites, and the main reason for that is to do with access. So if you're looking for curriculum resources for the classroom and teachers are wanting resources, it would be the Languages SharePoint site. Highland has moved all curriculum resources to the SharePoint site, and we have our own tile there, languages. So that's only accessible to Highland staff with their logins. For CLPL, for ease of access at home or at school on any device, it's a Google site, so there's no logins, and that's also opened up nationally to other staff. And then lastly, we've got the Digihub, which is for parents and learners. So again, that's a Google site for ease of access with no logins. Now you can access all three sites from the SharePoint site or from the CLPL site. They are hyperlinked. So I'm just going to take a little bit of time to have a look at these individual sites. And if you click the image, it will take you to the document, and then it's hyperlinked to the individual sites. So if we start with the SharePoint site, you will see the different flags. And if you click on the flags, for instance, if we click on, let's look at BSL, then you will see the different resources for BSL. All the learning and teaching resources are here, video clips, planners, etc. And it links directly to training as well, so that you can go to the CLPL site easily. And for languages like French and Gaelic, which are L2 and L3, you will see that we have resources for, and very clearly labelled, for L2 and L3. Okay, if we have a look at the Google sites, if we have a look at the Digihub first, this is for parents and learners, and you can see here the links predominantly for French and Gaelic is L2, but there are also links for L3, mainly for primary. And if we were to click on one, early level, it takes us to a section where we have documentation for parents, so that we can see what is being taught in schools, and guidance and suggestions for key activities. Let's see that for French and Gaelic. And then we also have a section where it's called videos and activities by topic, and they can learn the language at home. So there are short video clips organised by topics with some suggested activities or links to websites. You'll also see that we have links on the home page here for the Northern Alliance Family Learning site and Power Language French course for families, which we have, which is free for our learners for French and also for Spanish. Okay, and if we have a quick look at the CLPL site for staff, if you were to click on the learning and teaching resources, that will then have a link to the SharePoint site. But the main focus here is on upskilling the language and also how we teach. But there's also links on the key documentation. If staff want to have language ambassadors or self-evaluation, or work with partners, either with parents or outside schools. So if we were to click on language upskilling, it will take us to a page where we can then choose what we want to focus on and what language. And then you can see the different links. And the idea here is that staff can do this in their own time, CPD, and asynchronistically, or schools could organise training, or language ambassadors could organise training. So everything is there. So if staff wants to develop an individual language, they click on Develop My Language Skills. And then, for instance, if we look at BSL, there are videos from sessions that were held this year by our trainer that staff can access. So for some languages, it's videos. For other languages, it might be PowerPoints, it might be an ebook, or it might be a sway. So different resources. And if we look at the upskilling of how to teach languages, then this is divided up into different modules so that less experienced staff and more experienced staff can find something that's relevant to them, as well as EYPs and probationers. Everything is clearly signposted so that they can access just a wee video clip or a PowerPoint, and hopefully you'll be able to find what they're looking for. So for instance, if we start with the basics, that's things like how to do daily routines, use songs and stories, an overview for the different languages as well. Okay, so lots to keep people going. This slide shows the support on offer from Education Scotland with all the key resources from the National Improvement Hub, predominantly focusing on French as the main L2, but a lot of the resources are relevant to all languages, such as the policy documents or the expected outcomes. These next few slides just have a couple of possible next steps for head teachers and also for class teachers. So, how can we re-engage with language learning, focusing on maybe putting it on an ASG or school improvement plan, signposting CLPL, tying in with events to raise the profile of language learning, engaging with parents if appropriate, and signing up to get news from SILT, the National Organisation for Languages. They have a weekly bulletin, and that will be the main place to get news going forward. And for class teachers, it's really about starting small, thinking about daily routines, building confidence with games or stories that you're used to using, planning with stage partners if possible, using the resources on the CLPL site and also the planners. Last but not least, for support, should you want to have further support, I'm offering some sessions, and you can see the dates here. And if you click on the dates, it will take you to the CPD website to sign up. The idea is just to have a short presentation by myself, go through the key resources, and give staff a chance to share any ideas and ask any questions. Alternatively, if you want something that's a bit more bespoke, you could phone me or email me. And also, I'm available for ASG meetings. I've attended 10 ASG meetings this session so far. I'd really like to try and get around the other ASGs to touch base, answer any questions, and see what support is necessary. So please get in touch. Thank you for watching this, and good luck.